Is Oklahoma's Brent Venables the next big-time coach to get on the hot seat and get removed?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
On Crossover, I am Brian Smith of the Portal Podcast, and we are crossing over with Locked On SEC to talk about everything going on in the coaching carousel, talking about the transfer portal and all the fun stuff going on. Thank you very much for making this your first listen each and every day here on the Portal Podcast and Locked On SEC. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, if you bet $5 and you're a new customer, if that bet wins, you get $300 to use across the FanDuel app. Just download it today. We're going to be talking quite a bit about the transfer portal because we have so many job openings, what teams need to do what. We're going to get to that later on in the show. And in the middle, we're going to talk about the SEC race in the playoffs. How many SEC squads have a chance to make it and why? But to start, Brent Venables, is he the next guy that gets fired? Obviously, Brian Kelly from LSU got fired. We've already seen Billy Napier. This has been a wild offseason already. We're not even to November. It's so fun to talk about this stuff and to get it done. Chris Gordy, Locked On SEC. Chris, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, Brian. My head is spinning. I remember being at SEC Media Days in the summer and making the huge point that, can you guys believe this is the first time ever we brought back every single coach that was at SEC Media Days the year prior? And you just knew that, and you just knew that wasn't going to last. So yes, it is a whole half the damn conference is changing out for next year.
I think there would be a couple others, including one in Lexington, if it wasn't for how the buyout was structured, et cetera. But, you know, that's the contracts that they get into. And I did a pod about that recently, but your point is still valid. The money's flowing, brother. These buyouts, these agents are killing it. We picked the wrong profession.
The only thing I'll say on this is there seems to be a lot of pushback on those things. And I get, fully guaranteed and all that kind of stuff. Jimbo took his. Jimbo said, you want to fire me? Where's the door? Give me what I'm owed. Ed Ogeron said the same thing. You're going to pay me how much to go away? Where's the door? What door you want me to go out of? That's what I'll do. But notice the last couple. Sam Pittman sat down with Arkansas and said, all right, you don't have to pay me the whole thing. I'll take a little less. And they negotiated a lower buyout. Billy Napier, I'm curious to see the details on what he got and if he gets the full thing. And this Brian Kelly thing, I've been told by multiple people at LSU, he ain't getting the full 53. They're negotiating that down. So the Mark Stoops one will be very interesting to watch because I was there a few weeks ago for their game against Texas. They should have won that game. It was the epitome of the frustrations of the Mark Stoops era. Is like, yes, he's brought them some of their best seasons they've ever had, but it's like these last couple of years, like, dude, do you even care anymore? And that's where I would have a full sit down with him and go, dude, you're just embarrassing yourself at this point. Like we can talk contract and you can go, well, I got a deal and all this, but you're not helping your case. You're deteriorating your resume, your legacy the longer we do this. And so that's where I think there might be some discussion there with Kentucky if it continues to go bad. If Kentucky loses out, I think there might be a discussion there, or even like with Stoops. Hey, if you get the Virginia Tech job, maybe we can flip this as a positive. Oh, he left for another job. Oh, well, so I think there's some give or take there. The Auburn thing is very interesting, but of course, you mentioned Venables at Oklahoma. I mean, this is one to watch because that's a proud program in Oklahoma that people like to talk Texas, but they forget it was Oklahoma dominating the Big 12 the last decade plus.
That is absolutely correct. And I think it's one of the reasons that there's such a linear view from OU fans. They were used to winning 10 games and being like, ho hum. They expected to be in the Big 12 title game every year. They pretty much were. They were a playoff threat every year. They made it to the playoff. They should have beat Georgia in that one, was it 2017 or whatever it was? They probably should have beat them.
Mayfield.
Yeah. I mean, he was so good. And college football has these runs from teams like that. And when they end, the fan bases don't do well, Chris. I think we've all seen that. They don't accept very well. So we both talked before the show that, hey, this schedule was crazy but they started hot. The schedule was a little more on the back end, obviously the last 7 games or so. But if they got Tennessee coming up this weekend and then a bye, then they go to Tuscaloosa. If they lose both of those, there will be OU fans calling for his head. I don't know if that'll happen. For those that do not know, the AD, is it Castellone? I can't remember how you say his name.
Castiglione, yeah.
Castiglione. Great AD, but he's stepping down. You kind of need the AD to be in place to make this all work. So I don't know how that goes. I don't know who's next or when. But does he survive if they go 7-5? Like they got LSU that last game, and I have no idea what LSU is going to do.
Right. Yeah, well, I was going to say,
you're an LSU guy. You tell me.
You said you don't hire a coach without an AD. LSU's just going to let the governor handle it. So, you could do that.
They don't have the president. They don't have the AD.
I mean, here's the positives for Venables. He's already met last year's win total, so that's good. He's already got 6 wins, so you can only go up from here. John Mateer, obviously they rushed him back from that injury to get him back for the Texas game. He has not looked the same as he did earlier in the year. Obviously, you've ramped up in competition, but let's hope that he continues to get better, get healthy, and Ben Arbuckle can kind of open the playbook up a little bit more. They've had the lack of a run game as well. So, I think they could, to what we were saying, maybe they lose at Tennessee, lose at Bama, but you come back home, and if you beat Missouri and LSU and go 8-4, that's a pretty good season. I understand they had playoff expectations or hopes with bringing in John Mateer and all these pieces, but 8-4 is not bad. I don't think 8-4 gets you fired. If it's worse than that, I think there will be discussions because, like you said, here's the other positive that's working in Venables' favor. It's been a pretty damn good recruiter, Brian. I mean, look at these recruits they've been racking up the last few months. Like Oklahoma's doing a good job on that front. So, I don't know. Is it about putting it all together next year? Maybe a new quarterback and new pieces and all that. I don't know. That's going to be for the higher ups to decide. But we knew though when we came into the season, we looked at that backstretch of the schedule for Oklahoma and said that's absolutely brutal. So nothing you can do about it, but plow through. And like I said, I'll stand by. If they go 8-4, I think he's fine. 7-5 or worse, I think there will be discussions had.
That's kind of where I'm at as well. And for the record, Mateer technically has another year of eligibility. I'd like to see him healthy right now to go down this stretch, but God has decided otherwise. So good luck at Tennessee and good luck with the Crimson Tide because they both have legit coordinators and legit defensive fronts and all that. The only defense front that's probably better is the one he practices against. Like that one is not much fun. So he knows what it's like. But speaking of craziness, your LSU Tigers, Chris, if you want to take a stab at that and just throw it out now, go right ahead. I mean, because they're for lack of a word here, the center of the coaching universe right now. Are they going to impact anything? Because like OU may not want to do this like some other schools. Florida's in the mix. Penn State's in the mix. Michigan State could be making a move. I think that's pretty possible. There's a lot of jobs open already.
Auburn.
That's another reason OU may not.
Yeah, we'll see if Auburn opens. It's like that thing where everybody's lining up to jump off the bridge. Do you really want to be that if you're Auburn? But then again, how do you sell your fans? Hey, one more year of Hugh. He's really going to turn around next year. I mean, that's the tough part. It's about selling to your fans. Hey, we need more money, and most of the fans are going, I ain't giving that fool any more money. So that's kind of where you are. But for LSU, it'll be interesting. I mean, yes, it is a premier program in that it's one of the few schools that, before the Brian Kelly hire, the previous 3 coaches all won national championships there. Nick Saban did it. Les Miles did it. Ed Ogeron did it. And all of them did it within their first 4 years. That's why the expectation was Brian Kelly was going to do it. And look, I'm a fool. People ask me, will Brian Kelly win a championship in his first 5 years at LSU? I said yes, because he was a damn good coach with a track record at Notre Dame that, he had gotten to a championship once with him. He got to a playoff with him. I thought he was going to get it done. And with the number 1 portal class and the talent they brought in, Garrett Nussmeier, a 5th-year returning senior, all the ingredients were there, except the coaching was lacking. And the game plan, offensive game plan. Joe Sloan, in hindsight, you look back and go, the whole reason they promoted Joe Sloan a couple years ago, Brian, from after Mike Denbrock left, was because he was the primary recruiter for Bryce Underwood. And the guarantee was he's going to get Bryce Underwood to campus. And it was going to happen until a rich billionaire from Michigan decides to write a check. So once that happened, I said, well, what the hell's Joe Sloan's value here? Now, to his credit, they had a top 10, top 15 offense last year with Garrett Nussmeier, and it looked really good, but it completely backfired this year. And Nussmeier battled injuries and all this, and I'm going, wait, you're playing him hurt, but you brought in Michael Van Buren from Mississippi State, paid him good money to come in here, and he's not good enough to play? Like, so it was just a confounding, mounting of what are we doing here? And just bad coaching decisions, and it melted down in a home second half collapse against A&M, a game that you led at halftime despite your poor play, and just absolutely imploded. And so now, look, I think despite all the stuff with the governor and not having a president, and is Scott Woodward going to be out as AD, despite all that, it's still a hell of a tractor job for one reason only. Louisiana grows some of the best talent in the country, and there is no other in-state school that you have to go toe-to-toe with to get that talent. And that's where I think that's the one thing Lane Kiffin is missing at Ole Miss. His recruiting classes have been good, not great. So he's supplemented in the portal. I think at an LSU where Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson fell out of a tree in Ed Ogeron's backyard, like that's the kind of talent you have falling in your lap. I think Lane Kiffin would crush with that kind of talent, combined with his savviness with quarterbacks, where he seems to always have a great quarterback every single year. I think he would crush it in LSU. The question is, are they going to step up to the plate and pay the kind of money that it would take to get him? I don't know, but keeping that talent. Somebody said, well, this day and age of NIL and all this, that doesn't matter anymore. Louisiana. I said, go look at Brian Kelly. He just signed a top 10 class. 5 of his top 7 recruits were all in-state. Or he signed rather 5 of the top 7 kids from the state of Louisiana. So it matters. And those kids, as my buddy Matt Moscone always says, it's about the dirt. They grew up, they want to play the dirt in Baton Rouge. They want to play for LSU because it's the home school, and they don't want to go out of state. They want to stay in state. You're going to have the occasional kids leave that, Devontae Smith goes to Alabama and guys like that. But for the most part, it's pretty easy to put that fence up. And now with NIL, you just say, hey, we'll pay you to stay here. You already like it here. We'll just pay you to stay in state. That's what I think the appeal would be for Lane Kiffin.
I agree. I think that he would do a very good job there. And we'll see if he leaves, stays, or whatever. With Kiffin, I would not wager in any one direction, knowing his personality. That's for sure. When we come back, we're going to talk about the SEC race and get into which teams from the SEC could possibly make the playoff. That is next on this crossover. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making the late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you once again for making Locked On SEC and Locked On the Portal a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Brian Smith with Chris Gordy, and it is time to talk about the SEC race in the playoffs because they go hand in hand. And then we'll get into the transfer portal because that also will play a role very, very soon, my friend. Right now, there's a lot of varying opinions on which team is the best in the Southeastern Conference. Some also, by the way, use the portal quite a bit to get to that point, including Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss Rebels. We'll talk about them. But, Chris, I'll give you the floor. If you could only take one team to make a run in the playoff from the SEC, which one would you pick and why?
Well, I picked Georgia to win the SEC and as the best chance to win the playoffs. So I'm going to stick with Georgia just because, again, Kirby gets the benefit of the doubt for me. Gunnar Stockton's played, very well, and the defense is coming around. I've been a little surprised by how porous it's been at times, and yet other times they've stepped up and played really well. So I know they're young there. I know it's a work in progress. The hope is by season's end that the defense is playing very well. I'll be curious to see who goes to Atlanta. I mean, that's the very interesting part right now. We got an undefeated A&M team. We've got, Alabama with one loss out of conference. We've got Georgia with the one loss. I mean, it's this thing is, Vanderbilt right now has one loss. So Ole Miss with one loss. So it's going to be very interesting to see how, how it plays out, who goes to Atlanta. And maybe some teams don't want to go to Atlanta. You may have an Ole Miss or Georgia that says, you know what, you guys go find it out. We're going to sit here, take our week off, sign our signing class, right? Because that's the same week as the SEC championship. And then prepare for a home game in the playoff. I think Georgia would say, sign me up for that. It's basically the route Texas took last year, although they lost in the SEC title game, but turned around and had a home playoff game. So this doesn't suck as a consolation prize. But, I think the SEC will get multiple teams in. But who's the best team? I would ride with Georgia. I think Alabama's got the best resume. And I say that knowing they lost to Florida State week 1 and how bad Florida State's been since then. But the 4-game stretch of 4 wins against ranked opponents, a couple of them on the road with no bye week in between, pretty darn incredible. And then even to get outplayed by South Carolina for much of that game last week and still pull it out. Kalen DeBoer's doing a heck of a job. The OC hire of Ryan Grubb's been outstanding, and I'm impressed with them. Why am I not putting A&M at the top? And they're undefeated. Don't get it twisted. That was an impressive win at LSU last week in Death Valley. Took over Death Valley in the second half. Their fan base is singing the Aggie war hymn. It was incredible. But I still think they have largely been untested. Prior to the LSU win, their only win against a ranked opponent was at Notre Dame, and they needed a wing and a prayer in the final minute to pull that one out. Give them credit, they won it. But outside of that, they've been playing a lot of the lower tier teams in the SEC, Auburn and Mississippi State, and Florida. And they're going to get Texas in Austin, the last week of the season. I just worry because we saw Elko and his team. Were they 6-1 around this time last year, and then they collapsed. They lost 4 out of the last 5. That just worries me a little bit. I do think Marcel Reed's playing awesome. The receivers, Craver and Concepcion, have been incredible. Cassius Howell, his emergence as the best defensive line. I mean, he's the favorite for SEC Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion, right now. But again, I give the benefit of the doubt to Georgia and Bama. Maybe it's a little biased because those are the 2 teams that always go to Atlanta, it feels like. But those are the teams I would lean with. But A&M's got plenty of time to still impress and prove why they are one of the top 3 teams in the country.
With Bama, I'm just curious, and I sent you this note because I put it up on X. They've only had one game where a single back went over 100 yards. That is mind-blowing to me. Does that bother you at all or give you pause for the playoff?
I think it's just Bama's built different. I mean, that would never happen when Saban was on duty. Who's their best player this year? It's Ty Simpson. Who's their second best player? Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard. I mean, those are their best players. Nothing against Jam Miller. O-line's been pretty good. I wouldn't say, great, but they've been pretty good at protecting Ty Simpson and all that. So, yeah, I think they're kind of a pass-first team. That you have to have the run. They're not going to be able to win games without some sort of run game. But, I mean, they won last week. They had no run game against South Carolina. So, you're right. I mean, that will come back to bite you, especially in the playoffs if you can't be balanced. But for me right now, I'm not too worried about it. I mean, they even have ways to get creative when the run lanes aren't there for Jam Miller. They'll run Jeremy Bernard on an end around or put him in a wildcat. I mean, they get creative with it. So I'm not freaking out. I mean, again, to do what they've done and win 7 in a row at this point with a bunch of ranked wins is pretty phenomenal.
When we come back, we're going to talk about the transfer portal, who's going to be in, who's going to be out. That is next here on this crossover. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda, who crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery, and you can also make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, Chris. There are several teams that did well with the portal. We talked about Kiffin. He took right around 30 players again this year. And some guys just have a knack for it, like figuring it out, like Cignetti at Indiana. Like they have like 7 guys that are 4-star recruits on their roster, which is mind-blowing. But he circumvented with the portal. Some of the guys came over from James Madison with him that were still there. But teams that have done that, surprisingly, like Clark Lee deserves some credit. They've got a handful of Nobody thought Vanderbilt was going to be this good again. I know I didn't because I thought, hey, they're the hunted now.
What was their Vegas win total? Was like 5.5. So
I know I thought they'd be a 6-6 team, give or take, but they've proven otherwise. In the end, I thought would be 7-5, 8-4 as well, quite possibly. But again, these teams are figuring it out. Which teams do you think really hit? And besides, again, Kiffin's figured it out. Which teams do you think have surprised you, good or bad, with how they approach the portal and how it's gone so far this year?
well, I'll start with LSU because they have the number one portal class, and
Right, it's a good.
I think it's been a mixed bag. I think they've hit on some. Number one is Mansour Delane from Virginia Tech. I mean, he's hands down the best corner in the country and will probably be that in the NFL draft coming up. So I think he's absolutely, raised his stock in going to LSU. I'm a little disappointed in Patrick Payton and Jack Pyburn. They were the talk of training camp at LSU and expected to be, these big time edge rushers. And I think as of right now, they each only have a sack or a sack and a half. It's like they were supposed to be big time playmakers. And, I blame Kevin Peoples a little bit with that. The DN coach at LSU, not getting the most out of that talent. So it's kind of been a mixed bag for them in the portal. I think A&M, absolute home run with Craver and Concepcion. Look at what Concepcion does, not just in the receiving game, but in the return game, as evidenced last week in the win over LSU. So I think they hit there. John Mateer was considered one of the top. John Mateer and Jaden Ott, we should mention as well, that came over from Cal, was supposed to be a stud. Jaden Ott is, and they've said he's been injured. He hasn't been at the right and all this, but total bust. And John Mateer played well early in the year, but again, whether he messed up his hand being rushed back or whatever, he's not been the same quarterback the last few weeks. And so that's pretty disappointing there. So, look, there's been some hits, there's been some misses. Kentucky, look at Zach Calzada. That was a total bust. But in turn, Cutter Boley's getting his chance to show what he can do. Cutter Boley's looking pretty damn good. And if Kentucky moves on from Stoops or whatever, Cutter Boley might be one of the top quarterbacks out there in the portal. As a redshirt freshman throwing 5 touchdowns last week against Tennessee, I think people are going, that might be a guy to keep an eye on. So, again, I could run down a list of a number of guys. Rasul Faison, the running back in South Carolina, I thought he was going to be a stud. Has not panned out. He's got like 200-something yards rushing, and he is not even a speck of what they had from Rocket Sanders last year in the run game. So
it's been wild. Even Texas, this is the one, like remember how they went after the D tackles, and their defense is good.
Yeah.
But they lost their left tackle to the NFL draft a year early, kind of like a certain guy in Baton Rouge. There aren't many tackles in the portal, as we both know, Chris. LSU needed a couple. Texas needed one. If you miss on an O-line, or if you're just unfortunate and guys turn pro, Emory Jones left LSU too, by the way. They got the double hosing. That's almost impossible to overcome. And there's only one portal window for those of you that do not know this year. So these teams going into the offseason trying to revamp everything, Florida, LSU, etc. It is going to be the Wild West. Which school? I'm just going to ask this now. We'll probably have this 2 or 3 more times between Florida and LSU next year. And I have no idea. I'm not making any picks here. Who gets who, Kiffin included. Which school needs to come out of the gate hot using the portal more? Is it UF or LSU?
Well, I think the bigger question is which one gets poached the most. That's
also true.
That's where I thought you were going, and that's really where you got to start. Is how does LSU keep these guys on the roster? I saw Caden Durham, the running back from LSU, posting to his Instagram story the last couple of days of congratulating his buddy at Auburn who was such and such player of the week, and this guy at another school is and I'm like, I wonder if Caden Durham. I know he got the LSU tattoo on his side, but I'm like, he might be eyeing the portal if, because again, you committed to Brian Kelly. He gets fired, I might go elsewhere. Same thing with the guys at Florida I committed to Billy Napier. He's gone. And DJ Lagway is the big one to watch there because I know he got paid a hefty deal, but I was told by a couple of people last year, watch down the road if it doesn't work out with Napier. Lagway could end up at A&M because of being from Willis, Texas, just outside Houston. It's not far from A&M. Now, the quandary here now is Marcel Reed's awesome. He's a redshirt sophomore. Marcel Reed's probably back next year at A&M, so I don't think maybe that's not the fit. But, look, if we're just talking about guys that could be really good hitting the portal, I think, at LSU, the 2 running backs, Caden Durham and Harlan Berry, who was a stud freshman. I think it's DJ Lagway at Florida. And then some of those Florida wide receivers that were all, freshmen.
Dallas Wilson.
I mean, absolute studs. So I think those schools are going to have to do some real damage control very quickly on, hey, don't go anywhere. We're going to make a great hire. I promise. Stay put. Stay put. Don't let it. But you know how the business is, Brian. Those DMs are already being slid into.
I literally got a DM. I'm not going to go which school, which player. I got a DM as soon as their coach got fired. Basically saying, hey, I'm going to the portal. Just keep me aware to help him out because it's a kid I know. That's how this works. People like us in the recruiting industry, we're in this whether we want to be or not. It can get awkward.
Yeah.
It can get really, really awkward.
That's why I always say, look, if you're a good player, and I'm not talking about the 5 stars that are the top 100 players in the country, but if you're a 3-star or 4-star and you grew up in the state of Alabama and you love Auburn and your family are Auburn fans and you're diehard Auburn, pick Auburn and go to Auburn. I'll go there if the money's right, but I'll only be there a year, but I might go elsewhere. We need to get back to picking the schools because you love the school and it doesn't matter who the coach is. Look, you want to win a championship, great, but we need to get some loyalty back to I like the school because it's the school and not, hey, I'm on my 17th school and I'm going wherever the money is. I'm a free agent.
I wish that the words that Mr. Gordy just said would interject into many ears across the United States of America and afar. Unfortunately, those will fall on deaf ears more often than not, Chris. I think that's the unfortunate, sanctimous, sad situation that it is. But anyway, one last thing before we get out of here. With the playoff and everything coming up, do you think there's some pressure on the SEC because they weren't in the final last year, et cetera? Winning, it's one. Everybody wants to win it every year. But do they at least need to make the championship game, in your opinion? Or is there going to be some, I don't know how you do it because it's a league. It's not a team or a coach. But what do you think that does to the league if they don't make it to the final game?
I think they have to win it all. I mean, I think the pressure is on. The Big Ten has been talking smack and beating their chest that Michigan won it, Ohio State won it. And yeah, the SEC hasn't even played for one. And it would take a little bit of it off the back even if they get to the championship and lose. But I think they got to win it. And it seems stupid because if Bama gets there, nobody else in the SEC is rooting for Bama to win it. If Georgia gets there, nobody else in the SEC is going, go Georgia, go Dogs. But at the end of the day, the conference takes a hit, and these other conferences, Big Ten and ACC, they talk their trash, and they go, oh, SEC, you used to be the big boy in town. Now 3 straight years without winning a national championship. So that's very real. Again, that's why I think an SEC team has to win it this year. I do think they have some very good teams from A&M to Alabama to Georgia. Look, nothing will warm my heart more than to see Diego Pavia stand up on the stage and hold the trophy and Vanderbilt national champions. I mean, Clark Lee might get a lifetime contract right there on the spot if that happens. But I think there's a ton of pressure. SEC's got to win it this year.
I think there's some truth in that. And I don't know how it'll work out, but I'll take Ohio State and to see how that plays out. That's my gut feeling. I'll go with Jeremiah. It's a solid edge bet. But that's why college football is the greatest sport on earth, Chris. Every year we say, this is what's going to happen. And then it doesn't. So that's why we watch.
Brian, preseason, if we did a top 10 coaching list,
oh my God,
we would have James Franklin and Brian Kelly in our top 10 coaches in college football, both unemployed.
Greatest example I can use is what Chris just said right there. Amen to that, brother. Chris, tell everybody where they can find your work.
Yeah, Locked On SEC, wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on YouTube. And been getting a bigger and bigger following throughout this season. We've got, of course, a lot of excitement with the SEC, and we're talking all things SEC, all 16 teams each and every day.
And we're talking all things recruiting, transfer portal, and definitely coaching carousel every day on Locked On the Portal live shows at noon Eastern every day. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.